so I made another Facebook thread talking about like cultural faux pas, and I thought that'd be a good theme for today's podcast. Because I think everybody, no matter where you go, I just realized that like it's not about if you're going to make a cultural faux pas, it's just when will you do it, and you'll do it multiple times. And it doesn't matter if you're going to America, if you're Korean going to America, or American coming to Korea, or Canadian, whatever. It's just you can't help but accidentally cross those lines. So I've had some respondents that wrote back, a couple of ideas. There's a couple of situations where they made cultural faux pas, and I thought I would start with a story of myself here on my second year as a Hagwon teacher. I should have known better, but we got invited to, me and another teacher at the Hagwon got invited to a bus driver's house, because the Hagwon has bus drivers for the kids. So there's like there were three or four bus drivers, and one of them really wanted us to come over and have dinner together with his family. And I think we probably put it off as long as we could without making it weird. So we finally just said yes, and decided to go on like a Saturday night, which is like it's a big deal when you're in your 20s to give up your Saturday night to go to dinner at some bus driver's house. And so we go over to this place, and the first faux pas that we make is we show up empty-handed. So in Korea, you got to bring a gift, man. A box of apples, some fruit. I just remember my friend mentioned it, and I was like, no, that's not true. That's not a cultural thing, here or whatever. I just being stupid and immature and 20 something. So we showed up empty handed, which was kind of weird. And then we go into this house, and it's really tiny. It's in Seoul. So basically you're in a kitchen, and then you're in the bedroom, and that's all it is. It's just a kitchen and a bedroom essentially. And then there's a piano in the kitchen. And so you already feel like you're kind of invading their private space, when it's like the bedroom is basically just, they throw a bunch of yos down and sleep there, but they move it out of the way. And that's where the food was set up. And so before we start eating, the wife goes into the kitchen and sits at the piano, and we start singing Christian hymns. Like, right. Yeah, like you do before a dinner party. It was like being in church or something. And so we finished with the hymns. We're already kind of uncomfortable looking at each other, and then we eat bosam, the meat, and then the soju comes out, and we just drink copious amounts of soju. I mean, just so after basically the church service comes the party time, and we just absolutely, yeah, it was just a sloppy
blood of Christ, right? It's all good.
right. Yeah, I guess so. But it was just a weird, just such a bizarre kind of evening. And I think our cultural faux pas was that we showed up empty-handed, and then we had this really strange night, and then we ended up at a karaoke bar with like their whole family. Like the uncle came by, and all these people just came by, and we all ended up at a karaoke bar down the street. So it was a good night. It was awesome. It was fun, but strange.
Most cultural faux pas, I think, one fun thing about being a foreigner and in a stranger in a strange land is that cultural faux pas, for most things, not for everything, but in many small cases, don't really matter. You can break these rules, and they don't really care. It's just like, oh, silly foreigner. Like that's just what happens, and it's an interesting learning moment as well. Like there's a bunch of examples of something that I did, and it's like, well, what the hell, I did that wrong. And I asked my friend the next day, like, what was wrong? Why was I so confused? And then they explain it to me, and it's like, oh, and then I start to understand more of the culture, which is a cool thing about it as well. Like you figure out what that cultural faux pas, what it means to Korea, to the people here.
Yeah. And like
in some cases, like bringing gifts, that's just kind of a nice thing to do. Maybe it's a bit different.
In
Maybe
America,
it doesn't go back
you bring a bottle of wine or something. I mean, you should, it's not like we didn't know better. You know what I mean? Like we just kind of brushed it off and didn't. I think it's a little bit stronger here than maybe back in the West, like the obligation of bringing a gift to a party. But even back home now, I wouldn't show up empty-handed at a dinner party.
Yeah,
I'd
I
probably
mean, a
bring a
bottle of
bottle
wine
of
is a
wine.
pretty normal thing to bring, or like, some flowers for the table or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it's certain type of person is a person who ruminates on those kinds of things too, though. You know what I mean? Like somebody who really like, oh, how did I mess up? And I think those that it's a certain personality type too. Because like you said, I think most people don't.
Yeah.
You're not going to be like shunned by society for a cultural faux pas in Korea.
Yeah,
No.
I had the experience where, and I think maybe you two can relate to this. Maybe you knew somebody like this. When I came here, I think every friend group, there's always like at least one foreigner among that friend group who's like kind of the know-it-all, and
Yeah.
they just gotta tell you, like they've been here for like 4 months and they know everything, and they want to warn you, they want to take care, they want to tell you they know how the culture works, and you gotta
Right.
shake a hand like this, you gotta bow like this, you gotta use the right verbs, and you know.
Right.
Yeah, and they just ignore the fact that it's also possible for you to, like, kind of learn it on your own, which for people listening, if you're going to a foreign culture, kind of what Jack opened with here, I couldn't emphasize that enough. I think I stepped in it constantly, and I think my ego had a hard time with it. Like, you're gonna mess up. You're in a foreign place. I mean, even if you research the crap out of it, you just don't know. Local customs within a larger area are going to be special too, and you're going to find you're going to step in it, you're going to make mistakes, and you got to know that the community that you're in, if you're new there, they're going to give you a pass, and like Kev said, you're going to learn something and then just apply it for the next time. But you're going to be a little red-faced. It's going to happen. It's uncomfortable, but it's
what are the big like the big ones when you first arrive? I mean, like for me, the shoes one was never, it always made sense to me because my mom always made us take our shoes off when we went in the house.
Oh, nice.
So
we did that in university. My friends and my roommates, we had a no shoe policy at our apartment.
Yeah, because otherwise the carpet just gets disgusting.
Right.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that one's a tough one for me. Now when I go home and my parents just walk into their house, or my grandmother just walks into her house and they're just like, shoes on, to do. And I walk in, I'm just like, this just feels weird now. Like I take my shoes off even back in the States. It's just so normal at this point.
Yeah, it feels wrong almost.
My family, I think we have like, I remember going through some photos and seeing wearing shoes on like Christmas or something, but I'm at like someone else's house, like my cousins or something. But in my family's house, we have a little area, like the front entrance or whatever. A lot of homes, mud hall. Do you have this?
Yeah. Take off your boots, right? Yeah.
So it's where you hang your jackets and you kick your boots. Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah, it always bothers me when I watch like a movie or TV and I see like somebody jump up on their sofa with their shoes on, or the
just
bed.
Gonna say that.
Yeah, it's just so disturbing to me. Like that's more horrific than like a horror movie or something. It's just I can't take it.
I'm pretty particular about that now. Maybe it's because I've just been here so long and I don't remember correctly. Maybe there was times when we had shoes on in the house. I know that for a lot of Koreans, that's a stereotype of a lot of Westerners. So my students will often ask me about that, or when we talk about stereotypes, they'll bring that up. They're like, yeah, it's pretty weird that you wear your shoes in the house. And I'm like, I'm not really into that.
But most people do. It's definitely a large majority.
Yeah,
of shoes on.
Yeah, I think maybe I've just like lost the memory of it because it just seems so wrong.
Yeah, I mean, when you go to like friends' houses, like I said, in university, my roommates and I, we had a no shoe policy, but I think we were the only one. Like every other friend's house you would go to, it didn't matter.
A friend of mine went to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, went to university there, and I went to a house party, and I remember there's so much beer spilled on the carpet that the carpet would just stick to your shoe. Like it was just then
you don't want to take your shoes off.
No, that's a different. Yeah, you do not want to take your shoes off in that house. Here's another one that I thought was really funny. Was somebody got like somebody responded with like slurping noodle sounds that they actually have been given a hard time for not slurping their noodles loudly enough. Like you're not showing
make more noise.
Yeah, like make more noise. And I thought like that's a very interesting cultural one because food sounds are generally considered rude in the West. You know,
in Korea too, when you ask students about it, they say don't make that noise, right? They say don't chew with your mouth open, things like that. Oh, this is different from slurping noodles. This is chewing with your mouth open, not the slurping sound. But that's definitely the case here as well. It might not be followed as much, but like students always say that that's what you should do, at least.
Well,
but again,
like
slurping is different.
Watching those commercials where they turn the volume up on the slurping sound, so it's so exaggerated.
Well, again, the slurping noodles is a different thing, and I've become a noodle slurper at this point when it comes to like ramen and stuff like that. I don't know, it works better. I don't get it all in my lips. I'm not like sucking noodles through my lips and getting like pasta sauce or whatever, like just all over there.
Okay, so there's a you're telling me there's a function to this?
So
yeah, I think so.
I thought maybe there was like, it's like a culinary thing, like when you slurp it, it's like aspirating wine. You know, you're like,
right,
you're trying
to aspirating your ramen.
Soup. Getting that garlic flavor. You know.
Oh man, yeah. No, I feel I don't like that sound in the television commercials, but you know, because it's more exaggerated.
Slurping doesn't bother me. It's chewing with your mouth open that's still I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, that must be like a universal thing. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah. Well, no, while we're on sounds, an interesting faux pas that I've heard many Korean people complain about foreigners making. So this is something that I think is actually kind of a bigger one, is I've been told many times by my wife especially, but I've seen it on subways and things, that Westerners, we tend to speak more loudly than Korean people do. And so sometimes my wife will just be like, why are you so loud? I'm like, this is just my normal speaking voice. I'm not speaking loud. Maybe it's because I'm a teacher, you know, maybe I'm used to just speaking out in the classroom. I'm not sure what it is, but I apparently I have a slightly louder speaking voice than the average person in Korea does. But I've definitely seen foreigners talking, like, you know, a small group on the subway, and they're like talking amongst each other, and I'll see Koreans kind of like giving them the stink eye, like you're just being too loud talking.
I've gotten the stink eye many times. Yeah,
right.
I'm loud, you know.
I think that's definitely real. That's one of the faux pas I was going to bring up is sounds on public transport. You'll see people when they're talking, and I don't think maybe there is a difference in the intonation, of course, the different languages and different cultures and the volume. That's possible. I probably agree with that. But in addition to that, I think you could also agree, like even Koreans unto themselves on or off a bus, when they're on the bus, it's like whispering, basically. All voices really come down. If someone's taking a phone call, I'll see this, like it's a podcast, I can't really do the gesture, but
they cup their mouth, like
like they have their hand on the phone and the other hand like is kind of like this, covering their mouth as they're talking.
Yeah.
When have you seen that, like in the States? If someone's doing that, you think they're trying to like, you know, plant the bomb.
right. You probably get arrested. Yeah.
Well, you think they're doing something a little bit like
shady. Yeah,
something shady about that. It's like they're doing a drug deal or something. But
right.
That's pretty much standard in Korea. One of my friends, when he first came to Seoul, I remember it was just a one-off comment. You know, he was like a little frustrated. He's like, he had gotten on a bus and he had his headphones on, and they were like earbuds, and he had it cranked up, and a man next to him, this ajashi, like, you know, like waved at him, was like, hey, turn down your sound, because everybody else could hear his music outside of his earbuds. And he mentioned this again, he's very understanding of Korean culture. I mean, this is like when he first came here, but for him, he was venting. He's like, what the hell's up with this? He's like, it's BS, you know. Meanwhile, you know, the people here, they're eating so much garlic and kimchi, the bus smells funny, you know. It's like, okay, like it actually took.
But everybody's got their kind of limit where you cross that line. You're trying so hard to do it right, and then you get scolded, and you just like, you have to vent, like at a certain point where you just have a.
It's funny about the earphones one, because sometimes I immediately started thinking, it's like, well, what about those old people? Like I'm sure you guys have seen it as well. You've seen old people like in the subways, and they've got their phone, they're watching some, you know, YouTube video or whatever, and they're blasting it, like no headphones. But at the same time, like they're the Korean people on the subway are looking over at them like, dude, turn your shit down.
Exactly.
So so
not
they're
cool.
being rude in Korea as well. They're just, Koreans being rude in Korea. So
Because
yeah, sound
a-holes
is
are
still a thing.
universal. That's probably the same
Well, I mean, if
percentage.
you're in New York City and you see somebody like, peeing on the subway, you're not like, hey, that's normal. I guess that's what they do
He's
anymore.
American. It's okay.
That's the only
This
bathroom you can
country's
find in
amazing.
the New
Freedom.
York subway, from what I hear. But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you got to be a little reasonable. But yeah, sound is a big one. And I think for me, I'm pretty sensitive to sound in general. It's something I've always like struggled with in apartments, living in cities. I grew up in the countryside. I had my own bedroom and stuff. I was always kind of in control of the sound around me. So when I went to university and had roommates and moved to big cities, living in Chicago or when I was in New York, and here I would start using earplugs. Here, however, I don't need it nearly as much, which is strange because it's so much more dense. It should be so much worse. But yeah, I mean, don't you remember being back in the States, like your noisy neighbor upstairs, and you take the broomstick and you hit the ceiling and you're like, yo, or you have to
Yeah.
go in like,
Although
like, hey,
something
hey,
interesting about that, like, so first, noisy neighbors are very much a thing here.
Oh, they get murdered. People murder each other
Yeah.
over
just
it.
got lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. Although that's individual for the neighbors that you have, and maybe there's less of it than elsewhere. But thinking about just noisy neighbors in general, I remember one thing that was very surprising for me was when, like, one of the first times I had kind of a small house party here in Korea. And we weren't being crazy loud, but there was a few of us. We were having some beers. We were, above normal volume. And we got the cops called on us at like 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. And I just remember being like really surprised, being like, I understand we're being kind of loud, but it's a Friday evening. It's not that late yet. Like we'll shut up. Don't worry. By 11, 12, when it gets late, we'll move inside. But it doesn't feel that late yet. But we got the cops called on us at that time, still really early.
Right.
And so yeah, sound just is, and the cops were just like, whatever, just keep it down. That wasn't a big deal.
And house parties
But
not really a thing. You know what I mean? Like not that much.
there is that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
yeah.
Yeah, that was a big
noise
shift for me.
is a thing.
I really
here.
liked hosting. That was like my favorite thing. I didn't like going out so much in the
Mhm.
States.
Mhm.
Like I much prefer to take the resources and time that it would take to gather people in another place. And I was just always fortunate enough to have like, roommates and have like the larger space. And, guys know my hobbies, cooking and stuff. So, recruiting friends to help out and do something nice. And, then you got your buddy who's like, the mixologist and likes making cocktails and stuff. And you get to be your own DJ. You can have your own games and activities and everything. It's your own thing. In Korea, I was really bummed out, man. Like when I got here, that was one of the hard things for me. It was like, oh crap, there's like no house parties. Like there's no dinner parties. There's no.
I mean, you could do it. You can try to make it
we
happen.
Definitely
but,
did. We cram everybody into these little apartments, and I mean, I remember my place in Itaewon. At one point, I had 22 people in that apartment. It was a I guess we'd call it one room, so it's like a 2-bedroom or whatever apartment or 2-room apartment, and had a balcony on it. So yeah, but I mean, it was absurd, and I never
insane.
like did it much after that.
It sounds like a house party at Eau Claire University or Eau Claire College.
The alternative, again, for people listening that don't know about the MO of Korea, is that public gathering spaces, there's just so much of them, and it's like that's why you have things like noraebang, like karaoke rooms and stuff, and the cafe culture here is just huge.
Like, why would you mess up your house and have all these strangers come over when you could literally just have there's buildings built for this, like these places for this. So
like the cafes, not just like your average Starbucks where you'd sit down at a quiet little table, but if you go to the river, there's like 4-story beautiful cafes where you can just dominate a whole section. It's loud. It's like, what I'm talking about? Like these
or
like
even party rooms that you can rent. I did that for my wife's 40th birthday. We rented like a room that was ours, and we had we had drinks and food and everything delivered there, and that was like our place where we could be loud, we could be noisy. It was our home for the night, basically.
It's kind of cool, right, Kev? Like think about, like we talked in previous episodes about the pension thing. So pension is like
Right.
you rent out a house in the countryside, or it can be even kind of nearby, whatever. But the joint is designed for, up to, maybe it depends on the one you get, but it could be like 10, 20 people can sleep in this one big ass house.
Mm.
And it's kind of cool. Like, then all the mess is kind of consolidated in one place. You don't have to like set up your home for it. It's a mutual meeting spot, so you're not committing anybody to any other person's destination. I kind of like it now. Actually, I quite like it.
On that note, cultural faux pas of when you do go to a house party, wherever that house party is, if it's at a pension or even the house parties that are at a home, it seems to be a somewhat of a faux pas to go eat, drink, and just peace out. So many times, like in the States, I would have parties at my house in my dormitory, or not my apartments or whatever. And the next morning you wake up and your place is just thrashed, right? It's all college students who would come in. Here we finish up a party at whatever time of night, and the last couple people leave. And before they leave, the final 3-4 people that are there all are like, all right, let's get to it. And they like quickly tidy up everything, do some dishes. And I mean, your place isn't spotless. It isn't exactly like it is, but it's not too bad for after having a party. You wake up the next morning, you're like, hey, this is okay.
This is a theme that we were talking about, the Korean students' mask compliance before we started recording today. And just like there is a certain like I don't know what the word is, like empathy or cognizance of like the feelings of the professor or the host of the party or the other person, whereas we can't just leave this mess like this. We have to you have to consider it from their perspective. And so that, what I mean, like they're like, I'm going to help you clean up. That's
something, we're going a little bit off topic of
thing,
faux pas, right? But
Yeah.
I think it's very much a cultural thing. I mean, Korea, if you look at it, has an uri culture, a we and us culture. Like everything is uri. Everyone is family here, and it's in the language, which is something that's really interesting, right? So you say, like, when we say you're going home, you say uri 집으로 갈 거예요. Like, I'm going back to our house, right? Even if it's just my house.
Uri apa, my
right. Our
again, because I think this is one of the coolest things that I found, like the day I arrived in Korea, and I still, 13 years later, I still think it's one of the most interesting things that a lot of people outside of Korea that have no experience of this culture, even people that are trying to get into it, have not really looked at. That specific, not just that idea, but that little piece of grammar. So say it again, like when you're leaving, you would say what?
Like, 우리 집으로 갈 거예요. I'm going to our house.
Yeah, and what he's saying, if everybody's listening here, what he's saying is he's leaving by himself, and he's not referring to any other person in this situation. He's just referring to the house in which he lives as our house. Right.
It's our everything. But along with that, there's family. Everyone is literally, figuratively, linguistically family here. When we may have talked about this before, when you go to a restaurant and you like want to order another drink or whatever, you yell out to the wait staff, like, hey, come over here. And that's okay to do that. But so many times you'll hear the people when they call out, they're not saying, hey, over here. They're saying like emo, they're saying aunt. Hey, auntie, come over here. And of course, it's not their actual aunt. It's just some random woman working in the store, but it's their aunt. I mean, how many times when you guys were first here, like I remember meeting Korean people when I was out at the bar or whatever, and I'd meet a couple of guys or a couple of girls, and I'd be like, oh, this is my sister, and they're introducing. And I remember at first I was just like, wow, everyone has so many sisters here. And then I started asking, I learned, I was like, wait, is this friend sister or sister sister? I had to realize that, because everyone is, family. Like if I was talking to you guys in Korean, because you're older than me, I would not refer to you by name. I wouldn't be like, yo, Ryan, what's up? I'd be Hyung, older brother. What are you guys doing today? Like, that's just how it works. Everyone is linguistically a family.
Yeah. And not to go down the rabbit hole further, but I think it's really interesting when you think of what the implication of that is. So, okay, sure, it's language, and you could look at the two ways, like, oh, it's just words. It's just like how people say things. It doesn't really have any other implication, or maybe it does. Maybe that actually changes the way people are feeling when they're talking. It's a really cool concept. Really cool concept.
It's there, and it's definitely a part of the culture. It's interesting to know I don't want to analyze it too much, but it is there. It's an important part
Yeah, we
of
need to
the
like bring
culture,
it
is that
3D
booty.
to really get the take on that one. But going back
See
to
how
the
they
faux
feel
pas
about
thing,
it.
because that's kind
Yeah.
of the,
Yeah. Well, how about this?
oh, go ahead.
So, sorry, Ryan, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's all right.
They were talking about like line culture, like getting, so we're talking about the Udi and but what about that situation where you're everybody's trying to get on to the bus at the same time instead of waiting for the people to get off the subway before everybody tries to get on. And there's that, moment where you're like, oh my God, I have to get off the subway. I have to get off this train, but all these people are trying to get on at the same time. And I got to fight my way through the sea of people. That seems to cut against like what we are just talking about. Like, you know what I mean? Like the flow and the, so but I don't know if that's like necessarily a cultural faux pas. It's almost like a reverse faux pas. It's like it's a perceived faux pas by them to us, but like as a Westerner.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen better and worse around the world. Like, I think both of you have been to Singapore, right?
I have not.
Yeah,
Well, I have.
time.
Yeah, once.
Yeah, Singaporeans are like the masters of queuing. Like, it's like soldiers, the equal distance between everybody. It's awesome. But then you could go to a place like I thought, despite stereotypes of politeness and Japanese culture, etc., which maybe deserved as well, but the when it came to taking the subways there, I felt a lot more like just disregarded,
just kind of pushed around.
Yeah, whereas in Korea, at least there's like the idea of flow. So like when you're at the door of the subway, again, travelers, if you're coming here, look at the floor. You'll see other people doing it, but if it's a crowded subway you're getting on and there's people queuing up to get on, there's a flow chart on the floor. So people going on are in the middle of the door entrance way, and then people coming off are on the perimeter. So there's little arrows.
The opposite.
Is it the opposite?
Yeah. If you're boarding
from boarding side.
Yeah. So if you're getting on, you're going to be on the outside.
Right.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. I haven't been on the subway.
So the people who are coming off of the subway basically come through the middle, and there's two lines on the outside, and you're supposed to be waiting for everyone to get off before you start piling on. And
well, that doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just saying there's a little bit of organization compared to like, I don't know. Again, like when I was in Japan, it was like, I think it was Osaka or
That's really interesting about that. I don't remember subway specifically in Japan. I was there a really long time ago, but I do remember because bumping into people does seem more common here than it does in other countries. Just like even walking on the street, you might like, a small shoulder check of someone, and it doesn't seem to be as big of a deal. And I remember when I was in Japan, I was starting to get used to that in Korea. Like, I don't like it, but it's just like, okay, people, like they crowd around and they bump into each other a little bit more here than in other countries. And then I remember one time I was in Japan, I was just waiting for a friend somewhere. I was like on a street corner, just hanging out for a couple minutes. And some woman passed me by and just really, really gently like grazed my shoulder or something, like as I was looking at my phone or whatever, just really gently. She looked at it, and I'm just kind of staring off into nowhere at, just waiting for a buddy. And so I just kind of look up at her as she passes by, not offended, not anything. I just like, I have nowhere else to look. I'm bored. So I look up at her as she passes me by, as she slowly bumps me, and she immediately looks over and she's like, oh, sumimasen. Like, she was so sorry for barely touching me.
Right.
And in Korea, I would, people just bump into you and just keep walking and don't really care. Not all the time, but much more commonly.
And that's a big city thing too. I'm sure some of this is, just like population.
But this is where I was in Tokyo. Like, that's a massive city, and people.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Didn't bump into me. So, but that's I think the line thing is interesting here in Korea though, because sometimes the lines are total shit and people do just pile onto buses, and sometimes the lines are amazing and people just wait. Like, think about the 151 bus in front of the hospital by our university. Like, that line, the people will be waiting there. And they're queued up very, very well. I will say one strange thing about lines here is though that people wait very close to each other. And that's not necessarily a problem when waiting for the bus, but it's weird when you're waiting for an ATM and the person behind you is like right behind you. In the States, I would normally have space between at least the person who's at the machine and the next person, and then everyone is close together.
Yeah, distances are definitely different. That's something that I've talked about with my students. I know you guys have talked about like holding doors for people. The distance here, it's a lot shorter. So don't expect someone to hold the door necessarily for you if you're, well, from where you're coming from, if you're from America specifically, and in my experience, you're at a distance behind somebody where you expect them to hold the door for you, they probably won't.
The funny thing is, I'll hold it, but for like awkwardly long time, and then I'm like, I wish I hadn't done this.
Yeah,
now I'm stuck.
Like this. Yeah.
You know, you're just like holding it, and then the person is like, wait, there's way too much time now between.
And then you make them like run forward.
Yeah, and then they run forward just to say thank you for me holding the door, and it's like, I didn't really do you a favor. I just made you stressed. You know, like I should have just. I don't know.
You spilled your coffee on account of me, so you know.
right. I got a couple other ones that we just go through these emails. It's kind of fun to look at what people say, but this one is really a true one. Don't throw your paper, like if you're giving somebody something, don't throw it down like on the table, or like sliding a paper across a table to somebody. That's considered very rude here. I would say, in America, if you watch like the movie Wall Street or something, and there's like a weekly report, the manager just throws it across the table, and each, copy slides in front of the, worker. You would never do that here. Like it's
true story, Jack. Yeah, true story. I was that guy. I was that guy.
You were
for real.
Johnny slide the paper, huh?
Yeah. It was my first, not my first day of, but within the first week of working with the Board of Education in Busan, I had to like introduce myself and talk about why I was there and what I want to be doing, and this project. And I had all my printouts in hand, and it was a long table. It's like what you're describing. And I'm like, all right, and I'm like, all right, here we go, guys. I just came from Chicago. I'm like, all right. Hey. Boom, 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 boom. Like I'm dealing cards, and I got like the everybody gave me like the stare, just like stop. Yeah, I got it explained to me directly after the meeting. They were like, "Yo,"
that was yeah. I mean, there
was something else. There was something else I got called out on for that. I think it was awkward. I don't know if I've never heard of this since, but it was something about how I was posturing. Like I had my hands on my hips for most of the meeting, apparently. I don't know if this was like,
yeah, I don't know, like
Superman pose.
It was the same intervention. They mentioned that as well.
Interesting. Maybe it was because you weren't showing deference or whatever to elders.
I think I had
like
you do this, like if I'm standing for a long time and people are sitting at the table,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, I had my hand in my pocket on my hip, like my hand was hidden. I don't know. It was an old man telling me.
But this is an interesting topic, because I think when you're giving a presentation and you're nervous and you're younger, like what we learned from university. I know Kevin's this is right down in your alley of expertise, but you want to project authority, you want to project confidence. And when you're nervous and you overcompensate for that a little bit, you might come off as like arrogant. It's possible. Like I'm not saying that's what happened to you, Ryan, but I'm saying like in that situation, it can happen really quite easily when you're like, I'm feeling nervous, so I'm gonna crank it up to 11, my confidence, that level or whatever.
Yeah.
And that could read probably quite differently here than it would in America, where America, they might be like, that was right what we were looking for. We're looking for someone who's going to grab the bull by the horns, and here they were probably, oh, where's the respect, something like that.
And that reminds me of a book I was reading a long time ago. It was about like public speaking tips or whatever. I was like trying to catch up on some stuff for one of the camps we were doing way back when we used to do that. And I know one of our co-teachers had also mentioned this. You guys have heard this. One of the tips was when you walk onto a stage and it's a new stage, a new audience, just to bolster your confidence, there's like a handful of things you can do to like claim the space. Kev, you might know more about this crap. Like walking the full length of the stage and like, kind of checking the mic. One of the things on the list was to move a piece of furniture. So even if you're not going to use like the chair or the podium, just like grab it firmly, and just like rotate it by like, 20 degrees and then rotate it back 20 degrees and then kind of nod like, yeah, like this. Slap it on the side a couple times like, yeah.
It's
Like
my
I
chair.
own this. This is my space. This yeah. It's my domain.
Spank that chair.
Yeah.
That's mine. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. It's interesting.
Great sense of confidence. I don't know.
So along the line of like throwing paper is also like how should Ryan have done that? Like you should have handed each paper individually to the person using two hands, which would have shown respect. Not one hand, but you could have your one hand could be touching the other hand as you hand it to them, but there's something about two hands here that's really respectful. So
some of that comes, at least with pouring.
Standing, they were sitting. I should have given the full stack to somebody again with some difference. Like, yeah, and then they can pass down in whatever way.
Right.
Some of the two-handed thing, Jack, is kind of interesting. I don't know if it's two-handed for giving things, but I know at least for pouring drinks. Again, the cool thing about learning these things is that you get to learn the history a little bit. Is you'll notice when people pour drinks here, they use two hands, right? So you've got one hand like holding the bottle of soju that they're pouring for you, and the other hand is sometimes on the glass, sometimes it's on their sleeve a little bit more. And the reason for that, of course, is that way back in the day, everyone was wearing the hanboks, those old clothes, and they had these really big sleeves. And so you'd basically hold the sleeve up so that it's not getting in people's clothes or in their food or anything like that.
Oh, right. We talked about this in
I think we did
a past episode, but yeah, I learned that from you. Yeah, I didn't realize that was for holding the sleeve. I think maybe you guys told me about that. Yeah.
That's what's really interesting about a lot of different things like that is where it came from. Like I see one thing on the list here is talking about writing people's names in red.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I've made that mistake a bunch because I just have my whiteboard up in the classroom and I just have random markers. I've got a red, a green, a blue, whatever one, and I'm not paying attention. I don't really care. I just grab whichever one is closest and I just start writing shit on the board. And sometimes I'd be like, okay, who wants to volunteer for this? And I just grab it and I'm like, okay, Chris, Steve, and I just start writing names on the board and I write it in a red pen. And at first students would just be like, because you just wrote their names in red, and I was like, what? Why is this bad? And it's because that's like they're dead basically.
Yeah.
And that's because in the family registry, because all families keep their family registry really detailed, when someone dies in the family registry, they go and write their name again in red.
Right.
So
basically you're saying you're dead.
I didn't know I knew the implication was negative, and I had a similar situation you, Kev. Like,
yeah, of course, we've all done.
I use red pen for all my paperwork because it stands out against black ink. I like having red. So yeah, I had to change that when I came here, and I never knew that was the reason about the family registry. I just thought it was like maybe I was like signing an assassination attempt or something.
No, it's that.
That's
it's
what I
like,
thought.
All the families have their registry, their list of all the names. This person married this person, had these kids, blah 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 blah. And when they die, the name gets then written in red again on that in that paper, on the original documents. I don't know how many families keep it.
The thing that sucks is that at the Hagwon, the only marker that ever has any ink is the red one, because everybody's after your first week there, you're afraid to use it. You just never use it again. Blue or black. Yeah. What this one is interesting because somebody wrote a comment saying, "Don't worry about the fridge full of beer and hard liquor in the teachers' lounge. It's for the Wednesday teacher sports time." And so this is I think a common misconception. Well, that the idea that like Korea does have a kind of liberal, how can I say, like their relationship with alcohol is different than in the West, in America, where I come from.
Yeah.
Their relationship with it is different. How that could get
especially when connected with work.
Yeah, like especially with like work and drinking, it is not as taboo, but being a drunk is taboo. Like, and drinking at inappropriate times, drinking while working, it's not like a license to be a drunk by coming to Korea.
And
like,
also maybe don't misconstrue that idea. Like, I think in our work fridge, there's like a bottle of whiskey or something. But that doesn't mean that, like, if you go to other cultures, like if you're in Germany, my friend, when I was in high school as an exchange student, he used to mention that there was vending machines in workplaces that have beers in them, Um, and I've heard that like mentioned a couple of times. I mean, that again, I've been there like once when I was 20. I don't remember. I didn't go to someone's workplace. But let's say that's the case. And maybe in Germany, it's okay to have a beer with your lunch or whatever. Not the case in Korea. But you would see that maybe you might see alcohol on premise because it's used for like an activity or, you know, something after work.
Exactly.
Or
And I'm sure the, you know, line worker at the BMW factory is not drinking 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's not,
Yeah.
they might have one. And
yeah,
and
having
that,
like 2% shandy or something with
exactly.
Your lunch, that's kind of
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
But in America, that would absolutely be like, that dude's got a problem. Get him out of here.
Right. You're canceled. Yeah.
And I mean, people from America, you know this. So yeah, I wouldn't, if you see like at work, I'm pretty sure there's like a bottle of whiskey in our fridge at work right now.
It might be
that's
empty
not
at this
because-
point. It's been there for a while.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I don't think
there
that's
was.
because I don't think I've never once thought when I saw that, I'm like, okay, I don't know whose it is, but I never once would assume someone's like taking nips and hitting the class. Like, no one.
No.
A little hip flask, just to get you through the day. You know,
just keeping it mellow.
I knew a guy, a Canadian, a guy who was working at a Hagwon and became the like head teacher, and hired a new teacher, young guy just out of college, comes over to work at the Hagwon, and goes to the Huishik, and Huishik is a work dinner, and there's soju, and it's supposed to be festive. This guy gets so hammered, this new teacher, he takes a swing at the Korean director, like of the Hagwon. Like he just, now it's, he's, I don't know, been, I don't know, dismissed or, yeah, he was just so drunk. It just like a, so I'm just, don't be that guy, like, ever, you know what I mean? Like, just, it's not
in life. I don't think that's not like a Korea tip. That's just like a life
that
tip.
wasn't a profound, sorry, it was
you shouldn't get drunk and try to punch your boss. We want to put that out there. It's a real brave statement.
I think we can officially agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. That was really an unnecessary story. I just thought it cracked me up, and it was also horrifying equally. So it's just like, what would you do, like, if that's who I just hired to work here? Oh, great. What do you guys think about there's a couple other ones in here too. This one said somebody got scolded for not greeting everybody in the office, and I'd never heard this before. Is that a thing? Like, when you come into the office in Korea, you have to greet all the people in the office kind of individually?
That's definitely
not a thing, right?
Not a thing. At most, you might agree. They might have been saying maybe like as other people walked in, they weren't greeting them, like if they're sitting at their desk. And that I think is a bit more common. If someone walks into your office, it would just be like, hey, what's up? Like, especially if they're above you. But walking into the office and being like, hi, person A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Because I think this person said you need to make sure you're loud and clear enough when you do it, and otherwise it'll get back through the grapevine that the boss isn't happy with it. I think you just work with a crazy person. Like, there's somebody's out for you. You know what I mean? Like, if that's the biggest crime they can catch you on, is that you didn't say hello, good morning loud enough extreme for everybody. Then
I'm picturing like an office pool with like 20 people, and like someone walks in, Jack, Steve, Tanya, Sarah,
doctor. Yeah.
Sits down.
I think an easy place, one place where foreigners will often make faux pas in Korea is eating and drinking here.
Yeah.
Especially eating, just because, I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit in the past as well, but like every country has eating and drinking rules. I mean, like in America, you don't put your elbows on the table, right? Like every country does. But it feels to me that there's a lot more small rules here about things that you should and shouldn't do, and that I break them all the time, or I have broken them many times. I mean, like, common example is taking your chopsticks and just sticking it into your rice bowl, right? Like, I did that a bunch of times because it's just like, I'm eating, I want to put my chopsticks down, I don't want to just set them on the table, but I want to set them down to take a drink of whatever. So, they stick in the rice. Well, obviously don't do that, because that that's again for dead people. That's for the ceremonies.
That's what the
Like
candles or something, or the
no,
incense. Is that right?
no,
Or
it's actually when you do the Jesa, the ceremony for like on Chuseok and Solnar,
Mhm.
for when you like bow to the relatives, the ancestors, grandma and grandpa who passed on, you take the chopsticks or spoons and you actually do stick them into the rice and leave them there.
Mhm.
And that's basically like, okay, grandma, grandpa, spirit of grandma, grandpa, this rice is for you. You know, here's the chopsticks in it. Come take it. And so when you
Oh,
do it
okay.
at the table, you're basically saying like, this rice has now been claimed for whatever spirits are around me.
Right. And then you
Um,
proceed to eat it.
yeah, and then you go
Right.
at it.
Yeah.
And so that's why like that specific rule is bad. And of course I broke that one a bunch of times, and then my friends
Yeah.
would be like, yo, don't do that. But again, I was never yelled at for it. Like I said at the beginning, you know, my friends would say like, oh, Kevin, that's not a good idea because of XYZ. Oh, thank you for telling me. And then I just don't do it again.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of small things like that at the table. I've also, another funny example, and I've had this corrected me on me a bunch, when you put your spoon down on the table. Actually, I'm curious, how would you guys do it? When you put your spoon down on the table, would you put it like the upside is, I'm trying to explain this for the people listening. So like the upside is, you know, where you like normally would, where the soup would
Concave
sit in the
side.
spoon. Yeah, the concave side. Would you put that
Mhm.
side up, or would you put that side down at the
Up.
table?
No, I would never put that side down. I would always put the concave. I would always, so it's like
Maybe I'm
the
just weird then.
the scoop
You do it the other way.
scooper
Less
I
goes
always
up.
do
contact.
it the other way because it feels then only the tip is touching the table.
Right. I was just gonna say less contact with the table. I think Kevin's got a good plan here. Like, but yeah, I don't do it that way.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh,
Because I guess your mouth will touch the bottom part because it is a spoon. I was just
yeah. So for
thinking
me, I'm
like,
trying to. It feels like it gets less dirty on both the spoon and the table because
And
the whole
most
bottom part of the spoon is wet.
most gogi places that you go to don't have like a little, like, you know, little rider that you can rest your
Yeah, like
chopsticks.
mhm.
And you get that in a lot of places, a lot of restaurants. Most gogi joints, you don't get that. So, I mean, I do it. I see a lot of Koreans do it also. You grab an extra paper napkin, you fold it, and you put it there, and that's like where you can like kind of rest
uh,
your.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I
So
don't
it's
do
not.
that. I put it on. I lay it across, rested across a bowl, so it doesn't touch the
well, it's
table
Yeah.
at all.
possible.
So it's
There's a
the
That,
bowl
that's
there.
concave part is down, and it just like hooks into the bowl, and then I
yeah. Well,
always do
you
that.
guys,
You
what you
know.
said at first is putting the concave side up. That's the way you're supposed to do it in Korea, and I think that this has
Oh,
to do with actually the like ancestors as well. Because I always do it the other way, and a
Mhm.
few times my father-in-law has like grabbed my spoon and like turned it over at the table. Like, no, it doesn't sit that way. It's this way.
oh,
Interesting.
Um,
That's how you
so
would do it if you set a table in the West, right? You'd
yeah, but
put
that's a clean spoon. That's different from a
yeah,
spoon I've used.
yeah, yeah.
Right. So this is for me. Once I've used the spoon, I set it concave side down. So it's just the tip is touching
Yeah.
the table again.
Okay.
But
I mean, like if you think of a Western soup bowl, if you're looking at like a proper table setting, you're also looking at a bowl that has a much wider diameter and it's usually shallower.
true.
Versus bowls here can often be narrow
Interesting
and
point.
deeper. Yeah, so like if you think about like proper table etiquette, if you're at a formal dinner, what do you do with your spoon during the meal? You can let it ride in the bowl. I think
Mm.
that's standard. I don't think there's any
Mm.
other etiquette like where you're supposed to camp your spoon. But here you really can't. If you just leave your spoon on a bias in a bowl of soup, there's a good chance you're gonna flip soup out all over the place.
Yeah, it's
No,
Not
that's
gonna
true.
happen at some point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
And that's definitely a faux pas. No,
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
throw
that'd be
soup.
worse.
Everywhere. That's not good.
How,
That's
how
never
about this
good.
one? I had not a student, sorry, one of the respondents to the Facebook post said that they got taken out for live octopus,
Mm.
wriggling octopus. So this person was wondering, like, are they testing me? You know, like, is this so how would you politely in Korean culture, let's say you're a new Hagwon teacher, but you don't want to eat that. Like, I don't want to.
I would say that's on the, like if this is like your Hagwon teacher or your boss, whatever, that's on them. That's on them.
Okay.
You don't have to do that. They're
Yeah.
they're trying to get a rise out of you, or they want to share something with you that's exotic. And if that's really the genuine case, be like, look, maybe, whatever your reason might be, it might be you're vegetarian. It's the same thing. It's like just it's part of my culture, my religion, my idea. I don't eat live moving thing. I mean, you don't have to. I don't think. And if they insist and you're like, you're being rude, you have to eat this live octopus. Like, really? That's
it's time to you got to leave that hog on. It's midnight.
That's funny because that's actually
Yeah.
very similar to what happened to me when I first came to Korea. I think it was like probably the second, third night in the country, and I was working at the Hagwon at the time, and they all wanted to go out for like a hueshik, like welcome Kevin to Korea. And it wasn't the san nakji, like the wriggling octopus, like where you still eat it raw. It was like a nakji, an octopus soup place instead.
Yeah.
And so we all sit at the table, and they bring out this, big bowl of soup and set it in front of us and turn on the fire, and it starts boiling. I was like, wow, this is already very cool. And then suddenly the server comes out with a live octopus and drops it in the soup bowl. And so suddenly I'm watching this octopus boil to death in front of me.
Yeah, they put a glass lid on too, so you can watch.
Yeah,
you can watch it suffer as it
And-
boils to death. Okay.
So when I ate it, which I did, it was at least dead at the time, but watching it die in front of me was not something I was quite expecting or prepared for on day 3 of a new country.
No, I feel that way too. I'll eat it. I'm probably one of the I'm the type of person that will just I'll try it. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, so I'll just do it anyway. But
just make myself uncomfortable.
But there's some, I think in situations like this, when we're talking about faux pas and like, especially with food and dinner, you have to have some situational awareness. Like, I remember when I first came to Korea, living in Busan, one of my friends set me up on my first date. Very, very nice girl. And she didn't speak a lot of English. I didn't speak a lot of Korean, but we were determined we're gonna have a nice night, and she wanted to take me out for dinner, and I was new to Korea, so she wants to share something kind of unique. And so she took me out for I think it was Muno, like the big octopus.
The octopus,
right?
big octopus, yeah.
Yeah, it's in Busan, so it's really common to even here in Seoul, you'll have live fish tanks and stuff. I had given up already on being vegetarian at this point. There's no problem with this. Seafood is fine. They take this thing out. It's like blanched, and they slice it up, lay it out onto a platter, really kind of beautifully. There's a couple of lemon wedges with it, and there was a just really tiny banchan and a bottle of soju. Now, for me, this is just like not food, like none of it. I'm not a fan of soju. I mean, I've had it. It's just I don't like the taste.
It's got one purpose, really. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
like if you could just do it in a pill form, it'd be better, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like, and then the main dish. I mean, that's really all there is on the table is this giant chopped up octopus, and it's not salted, it's not seasoned. There's limited like dipping options here to even deal with that, and it's like not my favorite texture. It's it's too.
In defense, it was soaked in salt water for many years. So
that's true. That didn't have any lingering
very well
effects.
brined.
And so for me, it was an awkward moment. I tell the story often to people when they ask me about my first experience in Korea, because it's pretty funny, because this is a date, you're trying to be sweet and endearing to, you're trying to like be sweet to each other, and it's just, whoa, was not ready for this. And she did not do this as a stunt. It wasn't like she wanted to shock the foreigner. For her, it was like, hey, she paid for this too.
This is a nice spread right here. Like this is a
honestly,
this is a big deal. Special
proper way. She was like, she planned this, and this was like, so she's taking care of me, and I want to be grateful. So what do you do with this? Again, situational awareness. What do you do? I made a choice. Like, you know what? I'm going to try to enjoy this.
Yeah.
So I just took it slow, like, sipping my soju and chewing on this rubbery octopus.
Chew some more.
Asking questions about the banchan, asking questions about all the, and because you want to give back in that situation. But, if I didn't feel comfortable, if it was a different sort of thing, if it was my boss like pushing this on me, like, if you don't do this, you're not accepted into my culture, I'd be like, come on.
Yeah, come on. That doesn't really happen.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I had a similar experience to you, Ryan, except mine was chicken feet. And so, when you get it was just like, I didn't even know, I don't even know how to attack this. First, do I need gloves? It's a mess. It's where's the meat? I didn't know where to even begin with that. So you just take a bite, and no matter how good or bad it is, you just smile. Like that
Yeah,
was
I mean,
it.
when in Rome, right?
Yeah.
Do as the Romans do. If the locals
Yeah.
here are doing it, then you can as well.
I
Right.
think I have one last faux pas that's kind of it's kind of parallel to the things we're talking about. Maybe a good one to end on.
Mhm.
So a lot of the faux pas we're talking about are things that are like cultural norms here that very specifically you might make an error with. One of the things that I wasn't aware of, and I don't know if I'd call it directly a faux pas. It was okay. Let me put this a different way. We've talked about a lot of things where it's like, okay, it's a faux pas and you get the foreigner pass and it's an opportunity to learn and it's cool because you're traveling.
Mhm.
That's why we travel. We want to have new experiences. We want to understand different cultures, different
Yeah.
people. So you'll get that foreigner pass and then go ahead and spend it, cash it in,
Right.
learn something, right? It's awesome. But there was one incident or one thing I can think of when we started this conversation today where I don't think there is a foreigner pass exactly. And it's not something horrible. It's something to be aware of, especially if you're coming here for business or any type of work. So even if you're working at a hog one, and then that's dress code. So for me, coming from Chicago, I was finishing my practicum in Chicago at the time as an educational psychologist. So I audited a lot of classrooms. And so for the most part, I'm visiting multiple schools in a day, all over Chicago area. And I'm sitting in the back of classrooms. Sometimes I'm on stage, like in the corner or whatever, or, I'm interviewing teachers and stuff. It's not the way that I was moving around the city. It just wasn't practical to be wearing a suit and a tie and everything. So it was totally okay I think I wore jeans and a hoodie, kind of the way I'm dressed right now. It wasn't a big deal. It was almost better. It's a little bit more disarming, or what do you want to say? Like, walking in the classroom looking like an FBI agent, it's freaking out these kids, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to like outdress the teacher, there's things like that. I didn't even think of any of this. I was working alongside other interns, other professionals. I was just doing what they were doing. We never discussed a dress code. It was just normal. If I was in my office or something, I was going to be doing like, working with students one-on-one every day. Yeah. And I'm sitting in a chair, I might put on the tie and, I'm not running around. So when I came to Busan, I was doing kind of the same thing. So it was just natural to me. I'm like, okay, I don't think I even owned any jeans. So it wasn't jeans I was wearing, but just like slacks, whatever. And occasionally just a sweater or a hoodie. And I found out after many months, someone finally like either had the courage or like the kindness to tell me, it's like, you realize you're coming into these buildings as like an authority, you're not part of this, even the staff here, like you're dressing, what they say, like a hip hopper. Like what?
And you're like, why didn't you just take the giant gold chain off when you went into with the clock and the
So if you're coming to Korea to teach at a Hagwon, don't dress like ad rock. You gotta take it up a notch.
Actually, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that. This is a good thing to wrap on, though, because there are some things that you don't get to pass on. But I was actually just talking to students yesterday about work. And I was just talking about general things that are important in Korean companies versus American companies. And what some of the students said was that dress code here in Korea is really important. And I mean, of course, in American companies, we generally dress up. There's, official office work, and then there's, casual Friday and stuff like that. But they were saying about how you have to be really specific. They're like, no, hair color needs to all be the same, like no crazy hair colors and stuff when you're in the office, and normal these types of clothes are okay, these types of accessories, it was female students, so they were talking about no long nails, things like that. And dress code definitely is maybe more of a thing here than it is in offices back in the States. I can't compare because I've never really worked in a super professional office.
I would go further than that and say that if you look at I think anybody can understand this. If you look at the history of like why we have dress codes, and like where that comes from. It's all about status, right? And that's cultures around the world, right? America's gotten rid of a lot of that, and a lot of other places in the world have not. And
fair point.
Yeah.
And
So
hierarchy is built into the Korean language. So you could understand it's also probably built into the the custom of the way people dress.
Yeah.
And so,
even with our office, like with our teachers, you guys know the foreign staff, the professors, we have a wide array of people's choices of how they want to dress. Professors get to be funky if they want to anyway, even in the West. It's just sort of a thing, right? I had a professor that wore like the same suit every day. Remember we were concerned. It was like, he probably has like a closet full of all the same suit. And he was even my stats professor. He had this blazer he always wore. One day while teaching, he came in and you could see clearly he always kept pens in his pocket, his breast pocket. He never had a pocket protector, and it blew up. So he had like blue ink all over his blazer. And sure enough, the next day it's the same damn blazer.
Oh my God.
And he wore that blazer for the rest.
Was that like? Do you think he was like part of a bet or something? Like after a year, he gets $1 million or something if you wear the same clothes every day.
Yeah, he was remarkable. So what I'm saying is, like, anywhere you're traveling, you're better off to consider, especially if you're coming from America, where it's kind of free for all with consideration of that. You can really kind of get away with a lot more when you're not realizing you're getting away with it. Here, it's a good idea to consider, like, okay, really quick, again, like the professors in our office, yeah, you can wear whatever you want because you're the funky foreigner. Okay, but then accept that. That's what you just decided to do. You just decided to kind of act like the funky foreigner. So just know it's fine, but just know that's what's happening probably, And look at your Korean counterparts.
Never underestimate the a blazer, the power of a blazer. Oh, yeah. Just throw the blazer over, and you're already you've taken it up a couple steps right there.
There you go.
So
that's all you need.
Nice. All right,
jeans, sneakers, blazer. Done.
Blazer. There you go. With that advice, we will leave our listeners here today. You can always stream the site right from our website. Stream the podcast right from our website, thesoulpatch.com. You can also find the YouTube link right there and go watch it on YouTube. And if you're watching it on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And if you can do us a favor and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, that will really help us out quite a bit. And if you want to hit that Patreon button, we've got that up and running, but there's no pressure to do so. And we'll catch you next week on the patch. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Later, guys.
I'd like to pay a couple respects to the people that made me what I am today.
Nothing here.
Kiss all my love. Kiss all my love.
The quiet man.
Kiss all my love. Kiss all my love.
Dopamine. Jim.
Kiss all my love. Kiss all my love. Kiss all my love.
The brain.
Kiss all my love. Kiss all my love.
Hey Bobby, let the bass go. Call me an eater, call me a